Welcome to Stars Podcast, your growth mindset mecca. We are all about self-leadership principles here at Stars Podcast. Our guests come from all over the world with very unique stories of how they hacked their way into success. As you'll quickly find out, nothing happens overnight. And as always, enjoy the journey. Shake fast and pour hard. This episode is brought to you by Quiver Coffee. True, cold, nitro. Coffee that is just coffee and water. It's nitrogen infused for freshness, zero additives for taste. We also make America's favorite decaf nitro. As we said, it's natural energy, plant-based, unpasteurized, free from additives, always cold, brewed cold, shipped cold. I'll tell you what, I got a fresh pack in my fridge, a week ago? I drank the teas, the coffees, and all of them were amazing. I highly recommend the coffee. If you want something for no caffeine, go with the hibiscus. It's a little bit tart, but boy, it quenches your thirst. All of our listeners get a 10% discount when they use the code STARS, all caps, STARS, at checkout. Shake fast and pour hard. Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Ron Jordan, your host at Rocinante Studios in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. What you're listening to today is the Stars Podcast, your growth mindset mecca. We break down all of the different ways that we can maximize our daily potential. And today we have your host, myself, Ron Jordan, and my co-host, none other than the Web3 Standards Engineer, Alyssa Jordan, aka All Things Social Schmooper Girl. And special guests coming in via Zoom. She's been featured in Good Morning America, The Today Show, CBS News, also featured article in Forbes magazine. She is kind of after both sides of my heart here, the role of empathy into retirement planning. And I met her over at NFT NYC backstage over at the Edison. Andrea Delucia, welcome to the show.
Yes, it is fantastic to be here with the two of you. I was saying that this is a powerhouse we got here in the house. Love the fact that
well, you're no slouch either. You are no slouch either. You stay very busy with your business, Future Life or Life Future Wealth, and advocating for brighter retirements and really specializing in the avenue of women in that role.
Oh yes, it is something that is one of my passions. And there's a need for it.
For sure. And after hearing your story as to how you even got into it, and I'd like to dive into that just real brief, if you don't mind, if you'd be vulnerable and share that, is how you even became aware of what you didn't know in the wealth management side of our lives.
Oh man, we need a bottle of tequila together.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If you want to get vulnerable, you can. Yes. If not, you can skim it.
No, because this is the essence of what makes us tick and why we start a different journey in our life. So we're going to go back when I met my high school sweetheart in New York. We pushed each other through school, we graduated, and we landed these fantastic jobs with corporate America. And we moved to North Carolina, to another state. And we had a lot of good firsts. We bought our very first house. We were buying our very first car, cash, no debt. We had our first child. And 10 plus years into our marriage, with no syndrome, he came downstairs and he said, "I don't want to be married to you anymore."
What a gut punch that must have been.
I thought he was joking because we were not arguing. There was no red flags. And, couples go through different moments, but nothing really outrageous. So I was like, well, we'll talk about it tomorrow. And he just came back upstairs. The next morning, I continued with my routine because once we had our child, I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. Some mamas would decide that, it's easier than economical and the best care for our kids. So I resigned my job with, with IBM, and we decided for me to stay at home. So the next morning, I go grocery shopping, about to pay my bill, and my card gets declined. And I said, okay, let me try it again. There's money in the bank. Let me try it again. Decline. So I called it back. I'm sorry, ma'am, you're no longer authorized in this account. Okay, let's drive home. Put the kid back in the car seat. Leave my groceries behind. Got home, and he presented me with a stack of documents this big. He says, "I'm not serious. I'm very serious." he gave me the Quadro documents. I have no idea what Quadro was. I had a business degree, no clue what Quadro meant. But Quadro stands for Qualified Domestic Relationship Order, which is when you divide your assets, specifically retirement assets, from within the marriage institution. And he goes, like, you need to sign these documents. And I said, wait, I'm really, then that's when reality really hit.
I feel like so many pieces of the process were missed in getting to being presented with a Quadro. So just for our audience to know that, like, and I'm from a place of like legality, like especially depending on what state you're in, there are different steps in place before you should be handed a Quadro. So that tells me that he was very actively doing things without your knowledge to get to the place to even have those documents prepared. So that's insane.
I agree. Now looking back, I was like, wow, he was really preparing this, right? So through my process of that story, I remember just looking for ways for someone to help me now that this was my new predicament. So I called Fidelity and they couldn't help me. They needed to call a lawyer. I called an attorney and the attorney said, I can help you with a divorce, but I cannot help you with that paper. You have to do for a preparer. And I'm like, what is a preparer? So I had to contact my own preparer. And you guys will relate to this for a moment. As a woman, I was so emotional. I remember crying in my car and praying and crying some more and saying, what am I going to do? My life just crumbled and I don't have no one that can guide me. And that's the moment that I made that vow to myself that I was going to learn about this, that I was going to get better, that I didn't want to be in this situation ever again. And that's when my journey started to get into finances and learn as much as I could. And life kind of throws you that purpose. I was able to meet these other mentors, and this a wonderful gentleman took me under his wing, and he said, I'm going to guide you and help you. I'll teach you everything that I know, and I'll help you with all your licenses and credentials. And it's costly. So I have spent thousands of dollars just getting myself educated and continue learning more and help now women. So that's my passion too. And when I hear a woman that is going through different periods of their life, I'm like, I'm here. I'm your girl. I help you. Come on. You're not alone.
Now, I don't want to dig too much into your personal business and how this worked out, but I have to state too, was this document you presented with remotely fair to you?
No.
Yeah. Like that's the piece of it that I think really is a kicker sometimes too, is when you don't know, you're certainly not in a position to advocate to make sure you're getting what you're really entitled to in those situations too. So,
well, and I think that's why you have to get those preparers and those who are well versed in that. And that's why, these specialty careers, and I call it specialty careers in terms of like you have so much focus as a wealth preparer or even as a lawyer, these almost niche markets where you have to have somebody who knows what they're doing in order to understand the minutia of those documents.
Well, but even before that, like let's dig into this a
and be
little
part
bit.
of the conversation.
Well, let's dig into this. Who would have known a preparer was needed? So it's really about baseline education too, like understanding, like being presented with a Quadro, like you had to learn what that even was from the beginning. So there's this foundational education that's just so missing.
It is.
Unless you are familiar, licensed, credentialed, and then you're just a person in the world. Like I grew up very very poor. We didn't talk about investments. We didn't talk about qualified domestic relations orders. We didn't talk about
we were worried about if we were getting
retirement,
free
401k. Right. So like that's what I love about what you're doing is you're really bringing education to women who tend to like, listen, as a woman who's like come from like meager background and like has become educated, there's a whole world of investing and retirement that I had to learn about on the fly once someone told me, well, you have a 401k. I didn't even know. I was like, okay, what's that for? So, because if it's not part of your culture and education to grow up around that terminology and even having the availability of funds to invest in those types of things, you just don't know.
Yeah, you will not be aware of it. I remember in my seminars, because I conduct seminars for women, and I asked the question, has anyone know what a quadro is? And he was like, no. I said, good. That means you have not been going through a divorce.
You've not been presented one.
So education definitely is an aspect that we all need. And more than that, I connected now to the whole gamut of investments for women. If we're married, we typically have our spouse take the lead in that area. As you said, yeah, I'm good. I take the finances in my house, but you're paying the bills. You're the one that is clicking here to pay the electric bill, the gas bill, the car payments, insurances, but you don't understand the investment aspect. And that's only paying the bills is only a very small portion of the financial world. And so it is fantastic to be able to have both couples come together and share. Say, babe, this is what we have, and this is why I would like to invest on this, and this is how this works. But most important, what I want us to think about is the future, because ultimately it means income. We just want income for us for the rest of our life. And if I pass away, I want my spouse to continue having the same lifestyle that we have built together. Is that going to be possible? So it's more about that. It's just like, okay, let's educate each other. And then it ends as well, if you have family and you have children, as I don't want to leave a mess behind. I want my kids to understand what they have and not leave money on the table for the government to grab. Because we do that a lot too.
Well, it allows for, just from a relationship standpoint too, is the communication that has to happen amongst the two of you, and even bringing in the kids too, and having everybody aware is a healthy relationship. Also, it's a part of the relationship that if you're not communicating effectively, then these types of conversations can't even start to happen. So do you get into conversations because you get into empathy and education, and like those are like my wheelhouse places? So that's why I was like, I gotta have Andrea on the podcast, because if you're bringing that to your world, I'd like to understand, like, whenever you're having these consultations with folks, are you like almost like a pseudo therapist sometimes?
Oh, I love
or
this
no,
question.
are they already there?
Because
I'm just curious.
No, sometimes you have to bring awareness to that, because they come to you just with one mindset to say, hey, I got this money, how can you help me with? And I had to hold back and say, okay, let's go this route. So I asked them certain questions. I had a gentleman that came to my office one day, and he had a wonderful career and had a really wealthy accounts, very good amount. And I said, okay, well, tell me, what is your purpose? What would you like to do? He says, what do you mean, my purpose? I said, yes, you're already retired. He says, and then he tells me his own personal story. You see, that's the moment that you have to make them stop for. It's not about the money. He says him and his wife, they love to travel the whole life. And she always loved to get to the airports early and just people watch. And she enjoyed that, just how people were just rushing through the airport, right? And he's telling me this story and how much they enjoy holding hands together, walking through the airports as a couple, brought them together. And he said, sadly enough, she got diagnosed with cancer 4 years before my retirement date, and she passed away 2 years after that. So he says, right now, I don't care. To be honest, Andrea, I don't care. And I said, you're right. You lost your purpose. He says, yeah, my purpose was to spend my life with her, and this money was to be spent on her. And she's gone. So I said, well, let's work now on your purpose again. Let's find you reasons for you to not only be alive, but its fulfillment and achievement needs to be aligned. One without the other is not going to work. It's going to be a very empty life. So we had to work through that. And I love the fact that I am able to build my tribe of experts. So I have a wonderful life coach that came on board and was able to guide this individual, right? So I have that life coach, and I have state attorneys and CPAs, but whatever we need, we have them in the wheelhouse, so that we can guide this person to have the lifestyle that they need, even when life throws those curveballs. We love his spouse. But on the other hand, I also share with you guys and your audience that there's a lot of women that we are very independent. If this is our second marriage, or we've never been married, we have our accounts. We're pretty good in terms of taking care of ourselves. But then the knowledge that they need at this moment is also their environment. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are your experts that are really guiding you? And then you need different experts along your life, depending on where you are. A good example to understand is that the advisor or the person that is helping you in your 30s is not the same that is going to help in your 40s or 50s. It's different strategies, different kinds of guidance. And to be honest with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Well, because like the thing that comes up for me a lot, like specifically when I'm going to conferences and speaking about women and, this whole new Web3 metaverse type world, and there's an investment aspect to this. And one thing that people say all the time is women tend to be risk averse in general. Well, something I think that you probably, I'd love to hear you talk more like what you think about this too. It probably plays right into what you just said. The level of risk you should be assuming at different stages of your life should change too. And sometimes understanding that alone not only helps you understand the next steps you should take as an individual, as a female, as a male, whoever you are, but also when you're having an equal seat at the table with as a couple, as partners, and you're becoming more educated about this, you can kind of have a little bit more insight as to what risks your partner may be taking that may not necessarily be in the right direction for where we're at in our lives, right?
It's so true and so Ron. Yes, I do play advocate in a lot of these meetings, and I have to guys, let's just find a happy medium here because you want this and she wants that. And when you ask them, what is your ideal retirement house looks like? And it's like at the beach, and he says in the mountains, and we're like, okay, we're gonna have to meet somewhere in the middle.
Can we get 2 little houses, one in each spot?
So definitely understanding each other and then coming to that happy medium is crucial, and we had to be psychologists and guide them through what is it that they really need, and then what is it that they really want, and what is it that they're really going to afford.
So let me ask you this then, and I'm sure it's different for everybody depending on where you live, but what is like an average, what do you need for retirement? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is what I want you guys to do. A little bit, if you have a pen and paper, I want you to draw a pyramid. Okay. I'm very visual, so I always tell people like, come on, let's do some drawings for us to see what we're talking about.
Yeah, here. I always see your whiteboard on your website. You're always writing on there and educating. It just warms my heart. All right, triangle.
Okay, let's do a triangle, right? And now we're going to divide this triangle in 3 segments horizontally.
So like a food pyramid.
Exactly. On the bottom of that, I want you to write income. In the middle of that, I want you to write emergency. And on the top of the pyramid, I want you to write growth. And then in parentheses on the side, write Vegas. And I'll tell you that in a second.
On the side, you said?
Right on the top, next to growth, write Vegas.
Okay.
Okay. So it's like, what do we need? Your question was like, how much am I going to need? Okay. Well, I want you to think about what are you spending right now on a monthly basis? What are our monthly expenses, right? Mm-hmm. That could be, let's do an average of $5,000 a month. Okay. Now, I want you to multiply that by 8 to 12 times.
Okay.
If you multiply that, that is how much you need to have in your emergency fund, cash, liquid. So I like to say 8 months to a year. After the pandemic, I feel more comfortable with 12 months. So now we have a number for the emergency funds in the middle. Now, your expenses, your current expenses right now, if you're in between your mid 40s to mid 50s, it's going to pretty much remain the same because you're in the middle of finishing paying student loans and maybe sending kids to college and then maybe putting down more money towards them.
I love that optimism, by the way, on the student loan thing. That's fantastic.
Well, we're trying, right? We're doing our hardest. And that is when our really typically our incomes are increasing exponentially because we might have a side hustle and just, and we're bringing more income and we're trying to cover all these bases. So I want you to think about that income that you're making right now as the baseline for the income we're going to need once we retired. So we say like, okay, if we're making 3 figures, well, that's the income that I want to have in retirement. So you put that on the bottom. This is the goal. You want to be earning this amount. And then we think about, where am I going to fill this gap? Meaning, how are we going to fill each one of these buckets from where? And that comes into the planning. We say, okay, this is when, well, this is on the side. So now I want you to put on the side 3 columns, just like this, right? We're going to do 3 columns. And have your audience follow us, please. So we want to write on the right-hand side of the column, we're going to write risk. On the left-hand side of this column, we're going to write safe. And in the middle is going to be hybrid. And now you get to understand how you're going to fill each one of those steps of the pyramid and from where. And so that's when we talk about risk, things that are meant for risk. And we think about stocks and mutual funds. And we're going to write those down. So we go, okay, this is where stocks and mutual funds will go. And then you think about REITs, real estate investment trusts. You talk about ETF, exchange trading funds. All those things are tied to the stock market, goes up and down. And then we think about safety things. Well, we think about CDs. We think about municipal bonds from the government, not earning a whole lot, but it's money from the government. So we put that there. Municipal bonds, fixed annuities, right? And then we think about the hybrid, which is a combination of those two. And there are tools in there that are designed to give us some safety from the left side, and then the possibility of growth at a riskier side from the right side. And so we talk about this once, and then we come back and we put it back into the pyramid. So I'm going very fast without people.
Yeah. No, I'm digging it though, and I hope everybody out there who's listening, you've either pulled over to the side of the road or in your office and you're writing this stuff down too. Go through the exercise.
It's great. So now when we think about hybrid, it's called market CDs. And these market CDs were created with the possibility of growth. So if the S&P 500 does, let's say, 8%, they will give you a 5% growth instead of the 1.2 that they're giving you right now. And they keep the rest for the profit margin. So people like that. It's just that, depending on the institution, you might have a minimum of 300,000 or 500,000 to put into these market CDs. So it's not easily accessible to everyone. Municipal bonds, for example, the government now has some that if we dig a little bit, and you can buy yourself, you don't need an expert to help you with the municipal bonds. You can get them, and it works with inflation rate. So if inflation goes up, the rate of these bonds will go up, which is good. So right now, the maximum amount that you can allocate to one of those bonds is $10,000 per individual. So now you have some ideas, right?
Right.
And then going back to the hybrid, there's something that not many people are aware of this. I'm just giving you some gold nuggets here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sugarcoating things, but do your homework and learn a little bit about FIAs, fixed index annuities. They have like some hybrid things in between it. They have a floor, meaning that your assets or whatever money you put there is protected. They always guarantee your principal, and they give you growth from that point forward. You're keeping your principal and your gain. So it's pretty interesting, right?
So there's like no risk. It seems that other than you put.
Yes, it has some really. It's interesting. There's great books out there. I'll be delighted to share that with the audience later. But so you come back to the pyramid, right? We have some ideas. So you come back to the pyramid, and when we're thinking about emergency funds, now you look at the safe side of this drawing, and you say, well, okay, I have CDs, I got municipal bonds, I got these fixed annuities, that we can put our money in here into the emergency. And then when you say, okay, I would like to have some, for some growth, you still need money in the stock market. Then you say, okay, I do really like ETF and well-managed mutual funds that you can put into the growth there. So you put that in there. And for income, You owe it yourself to learn a little bit more about those FIAs. You're going to think about pensions if you still have a pension. We think about Social Security if it still's around, how much that's going to give us. And then maybe you might have things that are going to be sustainable and reliable amount of income. Maybe you have rental properties. How much are those going to give you? So now we add in all these segments and we say, is this giving me $150,000 that I feel comfortable having in retirement?
Right.
Right. And then you start adding up. So you kind of reverse engineering yourself to see how much am I going to need based on your lifestyle right now. Because this is what some people does not realize is that once you kind of unplug your alarm clock and you no longer want to work, reality is going to hit that there's no more paychecks coming in. That's it. What you have is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's scary. And then you don't know what you're going to do. I was like, oh, I don't want to be sitting in the couch and watch TV all day. So you're going to be picking up more hobbies. You're going to be volunteering more. You're going to be spending more time with family, grandchildren. I have a lot of clients that become authors. They wanted to write books. So you see, your life will continue moving on. Your expense later becomes just your health, because our health deteriorates. So your expense will go out according to your health. So I tell people, yes, finances is something that is not fun to talk about. It's boring sometimes, it's daunting.
Well, it's one of those things too, where if you don't know the menu of options of what you can actually invest in, that's why I love what you just talked about. You gave our listeners 8 to 10 different ways that they can invest their money instead of buying things. And that's something that I think that we all fall victim to, is we buy a lot of things, thinking that they're going to maybe go up in value and or they're just things that we don't necessarily even think about our future, whenever we buy them. And putting money aside and really looking at the future like this, in a visual way has, I don't know, it's opened my eyes. What do you think?
No, I think that this is so helpful. And again, like it's really just taking the visual, like walking us through this. This is so special because what it does is like the word investment, I think, doesn't resonate with folks who don't have money or who perceive that they don't have money. And what this does, this visual does, is it takes away some of the scary about that makes it feel unattainable and makes it feel like it's not for me, and really helps people see how this type of structure is for everybody, and it's something we should all be thinking about. And I know that it can be like, so I'm just curious, like, you're Ron has said this a couple times, your focus on empathy. Like, what is something you say to people when they say, like, this is great for people who have money, but this isn't me, this isn't for me? Like, what's a way to, like, really help? Something that you would say is like something that would help someone really be able to maybe relate with thinking about money in this way and their future in this way, who are they maybe
I
feel
love
kind of
that.
like helpless
Yes.
or disconnected from that being a reality for
For
themselves.
sure.
Two simple things. Simplicity equals consistency.
Ooh, hit them with it.
Simplicity equals consistency. And I say, like, and I motivate them. I said, listen, we need to be on fire. As women, I do. I said, as women, we need to have not just, there's an opinion that was created by an experience that makes them believe that they're not worthy, right? But we need to change that for a higher standard. So that's when the holistic approach comes into play. A beautiful example in my own family, I have my aunt, and she was telling me that her perception of money was not positive. My grandfather was a shoemaker, and whenever she went to ask dad for money, he only gave her coins. He opened his little coins and he would give her coins. And from that childhood, and that memory of her childhood, she perceived money as just being just worthless, just little coins of less value. And that stays in your subconscious. It's just later on that it gets revealed. And then through awareness and understanding that aspect of her life, she was able to change that image of little coins by gold coins, nuggets of coins. Now we change the value of money. Just like, oh wow, this is what he's given me. He's given me this incredible amount of gold coins that are so valuable and so rare. And now she's like, and in receiving that, she's now creating an image of being worthy of having this money. So changing that.
Ooh, feeling worthy to have that. Okay.
Yeah. So changing that perception of yourself is going to help you. No matter if you're earning minimum wage salary, you've been worthy of receiving this and doing something for you and your future and the future of your family. Doesn't matter if it's just putting aside $10, $20, $30.
Right.
So you see, that's the transformation aspect. Not everyone is able to do that, because when you walk into a financial institution, you're just a number.
You're a credit score with a debt to income ratio. That's what you are.
Yes. And for them, and forgive me for saying this, it's like, how much commission am I going to get out of you?
That's a fact.
Well, this is one of the reasons why you don't see many events for women. So I'm throwing another bomb over here.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. There's something to be said for that. We got to change that.
We do. I love that. We have to set higher standards, but it's mostly, if you think about it, as girls, we have so much on our shoulders. We are the private chef for our family. We are the caregivers for our parents. We are the chauffeurs. We are sometimes the spiritual leaders in our family. And yet we earn less than men, and we stay at home with our children. So our Social Security is going to be less because we have a gap in the years that we didn't work. So really, the odds are a little bit against us. And so we have to be smart about, okay, how are we going to have this communication, right, with our spouse? Hey, babe, you earn more than I did, but how can we be even a little bit more in finances? What's going to be our exit strategy? Not just accumulation, the exit. Or if you're a single mom, is also seeing yourself, okay, maybe you don't want to be a burden for your children. So what are you doing about it? Let's talk about this. Do we need to build a side hustle for you? And how much that's going to give you? Let's create businesses. Be very entrepreneurial. Let's do it the right way. Let's create LLCs and get some tax write-offs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why we have the LLCs that we do, and it's for that reason. Is just trying to get to the future and be a team in that pursuit, because I don't know about her, but I personally feel that we're going to be together forever, so we want to do this thing together forever. And
if you're lucky.
and in order to do that forever, there shouldn't be surprises. There can't be surprises at the end of it all. So open communication, I think, is the most important part. But Andrea, just shifting gears away from just the nuts and bolts of investing strategy, I want to get into your lifestyle, because a lifestyle that is pursuing this type of work in the way that you are, with empathy being the focus and that communication being the focus. And the reason, not the reason, but a reason I wanted to bring you on the Growth Mindset podcast here is that's what we like to talk about. We like to talk about the personal habits, personal goals that you have set for yourself to put you on this path of not enlightenment, but the enlightenment for the wealth management side of things. And even maybe personally, if you could dive in just a hair on some of maybe do you have a morning routine? Do you have an evening routine? What are some things that keeps your mental health in shape so you can help others? Yeah.
I love this question because it's different. And I learned from different masters, right? I take little things and bits and pieces and kind of create my own recipe. So I learned this from Brandon Bouchard, and I have it with me. So every day I ask myself 3 questions. What will make me happy today? And it could be as simple as just enjoying my tea in my patio, or it could be just getting my nails done, or just checking something off my list, getting the bathrooms clean. It could be something that bring me joy to me, right? To me, it could be whatever you want. The second question is, who can I help or surprise today? There's more happiness in giving than receiving, right? And contributes to our self-being. So who can I help or surprise? And I meditate on that. Maybe I have not been able to communicate with a friend that I wanted to send a quick text, or just a little surprise for my children. Be more mindful and just do a little something for them.
Powerful.
And then my third question is, what's going to be my biggest hurdle today? Because we know what pushes our buttons. We know it. We know what's going to be that coworker that is going to be there waiting for us on Monday. We know exactly what my husband is going to say. Then, we know it. So how am I going to show up as my best version to overcome that struggle? Because that's part. It's a two question, right? Part A and part B. Now, how am I going to overcome that? Being my best version, and I write it down, and that's pretty part of my morning routine. I write it down. And that's also sets my mindset.
It really does. And I can almost like picture you whenever you're doing this is, the happiness, it almost sets you up to tackle this. What is the hurdle? You almost increase the intensity of that conversation with yourself. And I don't know if you do that purposefully. I'm just kind of nailing that down at the moment. And I talk about this quite a bit is, you got to stack wins. So you got to start small and add to it. And even that mini conversation that you're having in the morning, you start with happiness and then you end with, okay, what's our goal to execute on this plan? So I really appreciate that a lot. And writing it down is something that I have really jumped back into, is writing down the gratitude, writing down the 3 things that I say to myself is I can, I will, or I am, I can, I will, and then fill in the blank. And then you do your gratitude. But writing these things down has really been something that's etched into my brain at this point.
That's nice. Thank you for sharing yours too. And then Alisa, do you have one?
I'm like the worst at consistency at doing things daily, just because that's how my brain works. But I have an entire very special book here that is full of all of my affirmations. And I start big and go small, or I start small and go big. So one of them in here is, I am a New York Times bestselling author.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm
amen to that.
That's it. Like, so you put the biggest things on there. And it reminds you that you need to take actions, even little baby steps every day, to get to that place. Because you can set an affirmation all day long, but if you don't take any action towards it, then it's just pretty words on a piece of paper. So
nice.
True story.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so that's something that I do consistently, just not daily.
Well, that's the part of it too. The consistency is every little bit at a time. I picked up a new one. I was, I love to learn. I love the mind growth set. And so Mel was talking about, every time we walk into a mirror, we're supposed to high five ourselves.
Oh, Mel Robbins.
Yes.
Yes, I love her.
Yes. And so she gave that one. And I'm like, I've been sharing that with my kids. I was like, come on, let's high five each other. And she's like, you look weird, Mom. I said, no.
Yeah.
It really triggers something in your brain. And it makes you stop. And in essence, we need to be the first one to cheer for ourselves. And you were saying, the small wins. Hey, I made my bed today. I'm going to give myself a high five. That doesn't always happen. It could be as simple and as little as that, but it builds up. So the next day, you're going to be like, hey, guess what? Instead of buying Starbucks, I decided to put that money into my savings account. High five yourself for that one.
Right. Yeah. Find moments in your life to high five yourself. I think just the small things that we do in our daily lives that we look over, that we feel are mundane. If you look around, you may be one of the few actually doing those things consistently, and giving yourself that high five and your kudos each and every single day, that self-love and showing up for yourself, keeping promises to yourself. All of that is just so important to the overall health of your family too. Because once you can high five yourself and love yourself, that overflows and your cup starts to fill up, and then you can pour into other cups. And I think that's really what I'm after in my daily life, is to be able to have my cup full enough that I can start filling others, and
Well,
excite others in that way.
Exactly. You know, in finances, right? When I type this in, I tell people I have never ever seen someone ended, being diagnosed with a critical illness and wanting to go frame their stock options and put them on the wall. No,
It's true. Yeah.
no. In those moments in life, what's most important to you comes to fruition, right? Your family, your personal connections, your spirituality, not how much money. That just really compared, like, that really does not exist at that moment in our life. So really puts things in perspective about what needs to be our core foundation first. Everything else will figure itself out.
Absolutely.
I also think too that adding some of these daily habits, specifically if you're struggling with mental illness, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but I'm an individual that has struggled with mental illness, depression, and anxiety. Sometimes just employing what seems to be these silly habits of giving yourself a high five for something as silly as getting out of bed or eating a banana for breakfast when you would maybe not even eat anything,
In
or you
place of a donut
uh,
of sorts.
or in place of a can of Diet Pepsi. I don't know. Like anything like that, any opportunity you can find to like really build yourself up when you're struggling in those moments where you're really struggling with mental illness too. It's not just setting you a path to like fill your cup to fill others. Sometimes it's what you need to take the next right step to like get out of that funk you're in. And so I just wanted to add that little punctuation there because
Definitely.
I'm
And I
always here
don't,
for the people who sometimes can't get out of bed because I've been there.
yes,
It's really
I,
hard.
me too. I'll tell people, like, no, it takes a lot sometimes to be able to be at different levels in your life. And uh, I'm also being, diagnosed with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. So we have to be able to find ways that we can cope with it. And, sometimes it's medication, sometimes it's medication plus other activities. And it's whatever is going to make you be your best version of yourself and to show up for our loved ones. That is what's most important. And people think that money is the answer. And I tell them, no, money is nothing wrong with money. Money is great. The scripture said money is great, right? But it's never really it's going to be what gives you the most relevance in life. It's not. It's a
No,
tool.
not at all. And like you said,
it's a tool that gives you some results for the lifestyle that you want. That's it.
yeah, right. And then whenever it's all said and done, you really start to look back on things, and the number one regret always, when you ask anybody, all of these studies that are out there, it's more time with the family, though your loved ones. You always want the more time thing. And I think money does give you some ability to have more time throughout your life because it gives you flexibility. And I think that's why investing money and having multiple streams of income throughout your life is a really important aspect, to have that extra time to invest in people, in those things. Not to say that you need money to do that. You don't. I'm just saying it does give you some freedom to make that happen. But I wanted to leave off here with kind of smiling and laughing here. I'd like to play a little game. Alyssa, I didn't really bring this up this morning while we were prepping, but if you'd be open to it, I'd like to play a little game. It's called This or That.
Ooh, okay.
All right.
Go
All right. So this is your first one on this new segment that I'd like to do. It's called This or That. And there are going to be some random questions. They're kind of goofy. Some of them are, whatever. All right. Jump into it. You ready, Andrea?
I'm ready.
All right. Pineapple pizza or candy corn?
Pineapple pizza.
Glass half full or glass half empty?
Glass half full.
Ketchup or ranch?
Ketchup.
Now, this one's going to be highly contentious in my household. Crunchy peanut butter or smooth peanut butter?
Smooth.
Oh, yes, girl.
All right. We can still air this. Thank goodness. I was a little concerned. Sneezing or coughing?
Sneezing.
Guacamole or salsa?
Oh, guacamole all the time.
Okay, baby dressed as animals or animals dressed as or as humans?
Baby dressed as animals.
That's way cuter.
Way cuter. Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Cooking or being cooked for?
Ooh. Oh. Cooking.
Attend a party or host a party?
Attend.
Sneakers or dress shoes?
Dress shoes.
All right, that's it. That's this or that. Enjoy. Thank you so much.
You learned so much.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to get across to our listeners before we depart here?
I do. I
Yeah,
have a
for
little
sure.
bit of a last exercise, and it's going to be very quickly. But if we
Please
can
do.
if we can close our minds for a second, close our eyes, and think of an apple. You're getting close to the apple season. If you can think of an apple, see. Now open your eyes, and I want you to think about this. Perhaps your apple run was red, and at least that was green, and mine was yellow. It's about the perspective in life. Same concept, different perspective. And the perspective, you're the one that is in control. You're the one that decides how is that going to play. So I always tell people we are the CFOs of your life when it comes to some finances, but you're the CEO. Ultimately, you make that decision. And it depends on what color your apple is.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you. Hey, guys, as always, thank you for listening and staying here to the very, very end. Make sure you tune in to thestarspodcast.com. Check up on all of our recent additions here to the podcast. And then also check us out Tuesday Live Crew, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitter. Andrea will be signing you up for a Tuesday Live Crew session so you can join the crew and they can ask you questions themselves. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
Enjoy
you
the
so
journey.
much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for sticking here until the very, very end. If you wouldn't mind just leaving a comment or subscribing or liking the podcast or wherever you downloaded this, maybe it was from YouTube, I would love for that. You take an extra couple seconds to give us some more love, even though you have listened here to the very, very end. We appreciate that so much. Could you also go over to thestarspodcast.com if you found any of this really interesting and you wanted to dive in a little bit further? Or go to our Discord, which is Rocinante Studios NFT. Enjoy the journey. Check out our Twitter Spaces show live every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a Rug Radio presentation hosted by Ron Jordan and co-hosted by Alyssa Jordan. It's called the Growth Mindset Mecca, where we go over different techniques that we use to hack our minds and our guests' minds to get the maximum potential out of each and every day. Check us out Tuesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard over at Twitter Spaces.